Translation. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, January, February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of mind and illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapara Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raknatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapati Yubhyascha Kripta Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Tras Parshas Tukanteya Shitoshna Shukadukada Agama Paino Nichas Tams Titikshas for Bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Hare Krishna. So the title, Dominique gave the title of our program, Experience Your Experience. Is that correct? Yes, got it. Yes, I'm at the right program. So, all right. So here in this, okay. So there's two types of experiences described here. One is experience of physical sensation, like hot and cold. That's described by analogy, like winter and summer season. And then there's experience of emotion, happiness and distress, We might say, in one sense, we could fit experiences into three categories. Experience of physical sensation, hot, cold, tightness in the muscles. Experience of emotion, the whole range of emotion. And three, experience of thought. Like I'm experiencing the thought that, oh, I slept too late or whatever it is. So experience of thought, emotion, and physical sensation. Okay, and so so to experience our experience, to be aware of our experience, this is certainly crucial. This is certainly crucial for conscious living. We use that term a lot in transformational environments, conscious living. Right? If we're alienated or disconnected from our experience, okay, then that's a very poor foundation for conscious living, because we're starting with ignorance. We're starting with ignoring our experience. So the capacity to experience our experience, and when we choose to communicate our experience effectively and powerfully so that other people get us, these are fundamental principles for conscious living. Okay, now if we want to look like who does that well, we can look at infants. They're good at it. Like if a small child, like small enough so that it's before they've learned to lie and deceive. Okay, so like if a small child is angry, you know it. There's nothing like subtle. We're not quite sure what you mean there, sort of thing. Okay, and if they're happy and okay, right. So they're effective in their experience and communicating it so that we get it. Okay. Now, my point here is not to idealize or romanticize babyhood. Let's all be like the little baby. That's not what I'm saying. But sure, we can certainly learn something from them. Now, but your typical infant or baby, it's not that they've mastered all the principles of conscious living. For example, another principle of conscious living is to be empathic with others. So rarely will you hear an infant, "Oh, Mom, you're like especially stressed out today. I think I'm going to just like cry. I'm just going to kind of be quiet and yeah, Dad, you've had a tough day, so I'm not going to be like demanding like I usually am because I'm a." Okay, so it's not like they've mastered. Or another principle of conscious living is to give up. Another principle of conscious living is to give up immediate gratification for longer term fulfillment. To voluntarily give up immediate gratification for longer term fulfillment. And that's described that Tom's Titik Shastra Bharata, that one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. And Prabhupada describes that in detail, in some detail, in the purple. So we won't see that in animals or babies either. Just like, I'm hungry, I want it now. And the diaper needs to be changed now, or I'm going to cry, and like that. So conscious, purposeful human life means we voluntarily give up some immediate gratification for a longer term fulfillment, and essentially or ultimately eternal fulfillment. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Rishabhadev, he has 100 sons, and he speaks to them. And one verse he speaks, he says, Nayam deho deham jam vido, kastan kaman ahati vid bujam, tapu divyam puchakayim sattvam, shudedes madhava, sakyam tvanam. Which means that human life is not meant for the same quality of pleasure as is available he uses the term as is available to the stool eaters, the pigs, the dogs, the bujangi. Human life is actually meant for an experience of ever increasing, ever expansive, ever deepening spiritual bliss. It's not meant to settle for the temporary gratification that sometimes comes of the senses connected with the sense objects. So he says human life is meant for tapo divyam, which means voluntary austerity. Voluntary, that, okay, that my experience is, oh, it's, my mind wants to sleep. My mind does not want to get up at 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. It's cold, and I want to sleep more. But okay, I'm going to do the austerity and get up early and do spiritual practice, and then by 9 a.m. I'm very happy I did, because I have a deeper pleasure. So even in the material sphere, this principle is understood. Right? If we want our business to be really successful, if we want to get that doctorate degree, if we want to master a musical instrument or a sport, it means we don't just lounge around all day. We don't just go to the bar every night. No, we like, okay, well, I'd like to just watch TV, but I'm going to study those books because I'm trusting that by giving up some immediate temporary gratification, I'm going to be more satisfied in life. I'm going to get more fulfillment. Yeah. So, okay. So our experience is fundamental for conscious living. It's fundamental for conscious living. And it's not the whole picture. Right? If we mistake it as the whole picture, then it becomes a sort of touchy-feely, new age, I'm feeling my feelings, and that's the goal of life. No, it's not. So it is fundamental, because if we're disconnected from my experience of sensation, my experience of thought, my experience of emotion, then in the name of higher consciousness, it's probably quite artificial. It's quite artificial because I'm ignorant of the basics. We talk a lot about genuineness or authenticity. We can regard there are two basic categories. Well, there's three elements of genuineness and two categories of disconnection or inauthenticity. So the three basic elements of genuineness are experience, awareness, and 3, communication. So one form of disconnection is where there's a disconnection between my experience and my awareness. So let's say if I'm like, George, I'm not angry. I just want you to understand this point. I'm not angry. So the whole room can see that David's angry. But David is so alienated from his own experience, because, well, spiritual people don't get angry and resentful. So of course I'm not angry because I'm a spiritual person. Okay, so it's a lack of genuineness because there's a disconnect between my experience and my awareness. Okay, so another form of non-genuineness, disingenuousness, would be a disconnect between awareness and communication. Okay, like let's say I'm at a social event, and as I leave, I tell to the hostess, I had such a great time at your party. Now I know for the past 3 hours I've been miserable and bored. I'm not disconnected in my awareness, but my awareness is it's congruent with my experience. I've been miserable and bored. But there's a disconnect between my awareness and my communication. I had such a great time. So that's another form. That's another form of inauthenticity. Okay. So 3 elements of genuineness and 2 categories of inauthenticity. Okay, so conscious living, alignment with process of self-realization, that I'm experiencing my experience, and when I choose to, I communicate it so that you get it. You get it effective when I choose to. Okay, and that's just the foundation. It's all of that, all of that in the context of living purposefully and responsibly. Otherwise, I feel my feeling and I communicate my feeling. Okay, so what? All of that in the context of living purposefully. And so, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. The Vedas describe that now that we have a human form of life, now's the time to inquire about spirit. Other species, they don't get to do that. They don't have an involved enough consciousness. Just each species has its special gift and function in God's creation. And the special function in the human species is we get to discuss about life purpose like the 17 of us are doing here. We have a few on internet also. And okay. And if we don't do that, then because the essential functions of animal life are eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So Bhagavad-gita does not suggest that we neglect our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. At the same time, yeah, it recommends to not make that the goal of life. Like for animals, how can I eat? How can I sleep? How can I defend? How can I mate? That's it. So then the term used in Sanskrit is dvipada pashu, a 2-legged animal. If that's all we're doing in glorified forms, then we're like 2-legged animals. So for a tiger, attack like a tiger. It's wonderful. It's being a tiger. It's fully aligned with God's plan. But if we act like tigers and dogs and cats and trees, then that's kind of a waste. That's unfortunate. That's a waste. So we get to engage in self-realization. Saint Francis said, we are searching for what is searching. We're searching for what is searching. Meaning, we're all searching for an experience. We're all searching for an experience. And we can, identify those experiences. We're searching for love, fulfillment, inner security, joy, peace, connection. Right? We're all searching for those experiences. And we're searching for them externally. St. Francis said, we're searching for what is searching. Because those experiences are intrinsic to the self. They're intrinsic to the self. They're intrinsic to the spirit soul that's turning towards itself in self-realization and turning towards Source, Krishna, in a spirit of loving devotion. So there's a well-known book called The Road Less Traveled. Well-known book. It's considered like a seminal work in the field of personal growth. It was written by a psychiatrist named Scott Peck, somewhere in the mid or early 70s. And it was, it's considered a very important book in personal growth. And so Scott Peck starts his book with 3 words. And the 3 words with which he starts his book is, life is difficult. He's a psychiatrist. And where he goes is that basically what he says is, so all of the neuroses and psychoses, it's because people are resisting the fact that life is difficult. Surrender to that fact and you're a happy person. Surrender to that fact and you're a happy person. It's the theme of the book. And he goes into surrender to that context, and then you free yourself to really love and be loved. And he defines love as supporting each other in self-realization, supporting each other to distinguish reality from illusion for the welfare of all. So, okay, so what's got pick? That's this verse. That Krishna is saying, look, happiness and this distress of the senses or even of the mind. That's an important point. We're not the mind either. The senses are inferior to mind, mind's inferior to intelligence, and even more so the intelligence than the intelligence is the actual self. So as far as the senses, happiness and distress will come, pleasure and pain, that's going to be there. That's going to be there. So don't make the goal of life trying to increase the pleasure, the temporary pleasures of the senses. That a wise person, wisdom means that we don't seek our fulfillment in the contact of the senses with the sense objects, because we're eternal beings, and we're meant for a bliss that is ever increasing. That is not temporary. Because even the contact of the senses with the sense objects, even it's temporary, and even if it weren't temporary, it's not satisfying for the actual self. It's not fulfilling for the actual self. So that means, like, okay, there's happiness, distress. F. Scott, he goes, yeah, life is difficult. So we accept that, and we stop trying to fix it. We stop trying to fix it. My life will be happy, and I'll be fulfilled, and I'll be a successful, valuable, loving, lovable person once I just put out this fire here and change this context here. Maybe a new partner will do it, and this and that, like that. Or oh, the 2019 models of Mercedes are coming out. Yeah, yes, right. So then that's all illusion. That's all illusion. We're searching for what is searching. That's all illusion. So the idea is, okay, that on the sensory level, mental level, it's going to be happiness, distress. It's going to be, this life is intrinsically disturbing. That doesn't mean we need to be disturbed. Now, if we are disturbed, we'll constantly be distracted from our actual purpose of human life, to cultivate self-realization and to cultivate love of God. And this verse is Tams Titiksha Subharata. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. First of all, to tolerate doesn't mean to repress, it doesn't mean to suppress, it doesn't mean to push down the emotional beach ball, to use that analogy, which we use in courses in the book. To tolerate means I'm experiencing it. I'm experiencing this urge to strangle that person, and I'm tolerating it. I'm experiencing this urge to go to the refrigerator, even though I just did that 30 minutes ago. It's different hypothetical examples here. Yes, so I'm experiencing it. Right? Because here's the thing: if we don't experience our experience, and again, that's a principle of conscious living with which babies are very good at. So if I'm not experiencing my experience, then that experience will drive my life from beneath the conscious surface. The psychologist Carl Jung said, till we make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct our life, and we'll call it fate. So what he's saying is that experiencing our experience is essential. It's as a foundation for conscious living. Otherwise, like I gave the example in my communication with George, otherwise that anger, that resentment, it'll drive my life till I'm willing to experience it. That shame. Shame, I don't got shame. I'm a confident person. I got it together. But that shame will drive my life, maybe prevent me from going for what's really important for me. So if I'm not experiencing, if I'm not aware of it, it drives my life from beneath the conscious surface. So it's fundamental for conscious living. So the verse before this says, Tehinosmin yatadehe, komaram yovanamjara, tatadehan terapraptir, Dhirastatranamuyate. Krishna says, as the embodied soul continually passes from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of the death of this body. The self-realized person is not disturbed, is dhira, is not disturbed by such a change. Yes. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So it means, there's so many fluctuations of the mind, fluctuations for the body. And the urging here is, let's accept that the context of this world, the world means out there, the world also means our own mind, because that's also external to the self. The context of this world is disturbing. There's all sorts of varieties of disturbances. Disturbances from our own body and mind. Mark Twain said, I've been through many terrible things in my life, and some of them actually happened. So that points to disturbance, right? As if life doesn't present enough disturbances, I'll create another 4,000 of them just in the next hour. Disturbances from others, which can be neighbors, friends, colleagues, insects, natural disturbances, weather, so many disturbances. Disturbances coming from eating, sleeping, sex life, disturbances coming from the propensity to lie and to cheat, disturbances from birth, death, old age, disease. Janman Mritu Jaravyadi Dukadosha Nudarshana means, again, an enlightened person, this is an enlightenment program, an enlightened person realizes the inherent unnaturalness to be stuck, to be pathetically stuck in a body that's subject to birth, death, old age, disease. Birth, death, old age, disease. This is a disturbance. We don't want it. Why do we resist death? Because we're deathless. Because the nature of the self is deathless. So the idea is to reclaim, realize, rejuvenate our deathless nature, such that we use this life not to get distracted by enhancing eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Again, we're not advocating neglecting eating, sleeping, mating, defending, just to not make that the goal of life. The goal of a spirit soul having a human experience is we get to realize that we're not these bodies. This is a big thing. We're an atomic unit of sentience, an irreducible quanta of consciousness that animates these bodies. Like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. The consciousness, which is a symptom of the soul, animates these bodies. And the function of the spirit soul is to engage in self-realization, and a fully self-realized soul is active. Not like, now that I'm self-realized, I'll go to sleep for a week. Because self-realization. Okay, what does one do in self-realization? I don't know, hang out. What do you do? What do you do? So this Krishna consciousness, it's not a process of elimination. It's a process of transformation. It's a process of transformation. So that it's like, okay, well, in conditioned illusion life, yeah, we do, we eat. So in spiritual life, there's no eating. Wrong. I'm glad about that. Spiritual life, no, there's a process to engage and dovetail all parts of the eating process in devotional service to God. That's our nature. So, okay, well, in material life, we do things like dancing, but in spiritual life, no more dancing. Wrong. Let's just say that's an incomplete conception of spiritual life. A full conception of spiritual life, there's dancing that is spiritually uplifting. There's singing that's spiritually uplifting. There's communication
communication where we put self-realization and love of God in the center. So nothing's rejected. Everything's utilized. Everything's utilized. That's Bhakti Yoga. That's Yukta Vairagya. So then the next verse after this, Krishna says, Yam hi na vyatayante te pusham pusharshabha samam dukkam sukham dira yom vitakvaya kapate. He says, one who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, and who is steady in both, is eligible for liberation. It means liberation from the inherent miseries of material life. It means then there will be no more disturbances in life. Wrong. No, life in this world will be disturbing, and we won't be disturbed. Life will be disturbing, but we won't be disturbed. In fact, all of the disturbances will take, this is an opportunity. This is a further opportunity to deepen my enthusiasm for realizing who I am as intrinsically transcendental to this mess, to this whole catastrophe, as a servant of God. And then we respond to the disturbances in a way that actually furthers spiritual joy. So, experience your experience. This is the foundation for conscious living. This is the foundation of Bhagavad-gita. Consciousness. It's the foundation of what's come to be known as the modern scientific process, right? So the modern scientific process. It starts with hypothesis. Yeah. And then there's an experiment to validate or not the theory, the hypothesis. So experiment means experience. Experiment means, yes, we actually, with our eyes, we measure these things, and we have an experience. Experiment means you have an experience. So that's why Prabhupada emphasized that this Bhakti Yoga, he called it, it's a science of self-realization. It's not just meant to be a catchy term, but it's a science that there's, the hypothesis is Bhagavad-gita, and those 47 books there also. But yeah, I mean, we can go more and more fully into it, but it's all there in Bhagavad-gita. Then it's expanded in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion. So this is the hypothesis. So we get to apply our intelligence. To determine, okay, is this rational? Does this make sense? Yeah, I'm still trying to find flaws in it. 37 years later, I'm always disappointed. I've found this sublime philosophy of Bhagavad-gita to be by far the philosophy that most satisfies my intelligence, as far as externally consistent and matching my experience of the world. See, in experiencing our experience, again, it's not just meant to be a touchy-feely thing, but then there's a message in that experience. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I hugely overate again at midnight. Okay, so then at 8 a.m. the next morning, there's an experience to that. Oh yes, okay, I went out and partied, and now there's this experience of the hangover. So there's a message to the experience. Right? Whereas, we talk a lot in our personal transformation seminars about avoiding pain as a survival strategy. So this verse is about not numbing the pain. So much of life is about the self, so much of human life, in practically all ages, is the self being alienated from itself. And then to avoid the pain of that alienation, let's shop for stuff. Let's take this drug or that drug, or we have our different numbing strategies. It can be through sex or drugs or TV or pornography. These are different numbing strategies to avoid the pain of the self being alienated from itself. If we allow ourselves to experience that pain, like And that can turn us to questions like, what's this life really for? What's this life really for? So we experience our experience, and we get to process that experience in the context of life purpose, in the context of sublime, perfect philosophy, such as that coming down through Bhagavad-gita. And then our experience drives us forward towards fulfilling the most profound purpose of human life, self-realization and developing love for God. So it's a scientific process. Scientific process. I mean, where Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, he says this process, it's not just, do you believe in this or not believe in this? No, Krishna says this is it gives a direct experience of the self. We practice, and I can say, to whatever extent, whatever meager extent, over the past 37 years or so, I've given myself to this process, then I experience freedom. I experience the joy of the self. I experience a joy that is not dependent on how people are treating me, or whether this one likes me, or what's happening with economics or even physical health. And every day I experience. And when I disconnect from this process of self-realization given in Bhagavad-gita, then I can notice, then I experience depression, insecurity, anxiety, easily reactive resentment. So it's a science of self-realization, and we're invited, encouraged. Give yourself to the process. See what you experience. Yourself to the process. See what you experience. Yeah, and these sages, these realized souls are saying, this is really the best thing we can do with our human form of life. Really, the best thing we can do with our human form of life. And blind acceptance is discouraged. Study the philosophy, apply our intelligence, try the experience, and see if there's a more joyful life. See if there's a more joyful life. If not, in a sense, I'm still doing the experiment. I'm satisfied. So 38 years later. Really, I would say 35 years later. 38 years. 38 years ago, I began doing the experiment by taking prashada. And then after 3 years, I went to the next step and I began chanting japa. So I consciously gave myself to the experiment, starting around 1983. Yes. So a foundational aspect of this science of self-realization is this chanting divine sound vibration, like we were doing at the beginning of the program, and we'll do later in the program. Another foundational aspect is giving our intelligence, not just to feel intelligent, but giving our intelligence with heart and soul to study this transcendental philosophy and discuss it. And we can feel the purifying effects of that. It's described in the Svetashvatara Upanishad. Idisho dashakam nam nam kalikamasha nashanam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That in this age called Kali Yuga, the most recommended process for accelerating our progress on in this science of self-realization is chanting. It's chanting this 16-word mantra composed of the names of God. So that in this verse, Krishna is saying, Matras parshas tukanteya shitoshna shukadugada agamapai no nishas tams titikshas vabharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your presence. And I welcome if anyone would like to ask any questions or share any comments or realizations.
Hare